Welcome back to Brazil Crypto Report. I'm your host, Aaron Stanley. Today I'm joined by Theo Fleury, who's Chief Investment Officer at QR Asset. We talk about QR Asset's new Solana ETF that was recently approved by Brazilian regulators. All right, welcome back, everyone. So we're here today with Theo Fleury from QR Asset, and we're going to be talking about his new Solana spot ETF, which will be live and trading in Brazil probably by the time this episode is published. But very exciting. Theo, it's great to have you on the show.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. Thanks for the invitation. And as I was saying, I big reader of your weekly emails. So thanks for having me here.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much. Appreciate that. So I'm really excited to dive into the Solana ETF that you guys are spinning up. I understand it's the first in the world of its type. But would love to just get started with a quick introduction. Would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us more about QR Asset.
Okay, good. So my name is Theodoro Fleury. I've been in the financial markets for my whole career. I have an undergraduate in economics and a CFA charter holder. I worked mostly in the equity and derivatives market until 2019 when I joined QR. QR QR Capital is a parent company that has a few investments in the blockchain space. The main one today is QR Asset, which is the asset management firm. We started back in 2019 and launched the first funds, crypto funds, in early 2020, in tandem with the lockdown and COVID and everything, which was luckily a great timing to be investing.
Good time to be buying these funds, right?
Yeah. I remember buying Bitcoin at $5,000 back in March 2020.
Yeah, good old days, right? Good old days.
For the subscriptions of the first funds. So it was a very nice timing, and we had in the first year 2020 2021 we had kind of a fast growth in the AUM of our funds, and in 2021 we launched our first ETF, which was a Bitcoin ETF. It was the first full Bitcoin ETF in Latin America. I would say outside of Canada, I think. It was the first Bitcoin ETF outside of Canada. And then we launched the first Ether ETF as well in August that year, 2 months later. In early 2022, we launched the DeFi ETF, which was one of the first in the world as well. It's a basket of 10 to 12 assets covering the DeFi space, like DeFi protocol tokens. And we have also our actively managed funds, which were the first funds in the beginning. But last year, with all the hype that Bitcoin got with the spot ETF approval in the US, the Bitcoin ETF started receiving strong inflows of new money, and it became by far the largest product we have in QR. So today we are around 1 billion BRL in total AUM, with around I would say almost 700,000 in 700 million in ETFs, and the rest in actively managed funds.
Yeah, so maybe talk more about the journey of being one of the first Bitcoin crypto ETF issuers in the world outside of Canada. You guys came in 2021. I think it was like spring of 2021, right, when you guys first launched the Bitcoin ETF, if I remember correctly. I think I was in Brazil at that point, so that's why I remember that so vividly. And then obviously you rode out the kind of the wild year of 2021. And we had a couple bad years, and then things have kind of picked back up again. But still, if you look at the most traded ETFs on the B3 exchange in Brazil, like if you look at the top 10, it seems like at least like half to maybe 2/3 of these are Bitcoin crypto ETFs. Maybe talk a bit about just like what's been the reception to these since you've begun trading, or you brought them to market.
So when we started our first funds in early 2020, we started noticing a strong interest, especially in the US, for Bitcoin, not for crypto as a broad asset class. And we started seeing some institutional investors getting their first exposure to Bitcoin. It's when we saw, for example, Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy buying their first big chunk of Bitcoin in August 2020. And we said, well, why don't we launch a 100% Bitcoin fund or passive fund to invest only in Bitcoin? Because I think with my funds were mostly, as they still are today, mostly retail-based funds. Crypto funds here in Brazil are very retail products. So we wanted to try and reach other types of investors and institutional investors, and we thought that maybe launching a 100% Bitcoin fund would be the most effective way. So we launched a common fund, a fundo multimercado here in Brazil, but that had an investment policy just like the ETFs, at least 95% invested in Bitcoin, totally passive strategy. And that fund started to grow, because of the trend, the uptrend in the markets. 2020 was a halving year, and by the end of the year, the market started going up strongly from after October. And at QR we said, where do we go from here? How do we have a better product? How can we get a better product? Because the multimercado funds, they are not so good tax-wise for individual investors. They have unrealized capital gains tax.
Unrealized.
Unrealized. It's a thing that here is called the comicotas.
Okay.
And I think that's what the Democrats are trying to put in place in the U.S.
yeah, it's causing a bit of consternation for sure.
We saw that the only way to improve the product was to launch an ETF. And it was a long shot by then. There were no ETFs, Bitcoin ETFs in the world. There were not even the future ETFs. There were some listed products. There were Grayscale, but there were no formal ETFs. But we tried. We started consulting with lawyers and the B3 to try to gauge a little bit the sentiment, and from a moment on, we had to do the filing. Otherwise, we wouldn't get more information on the likelihood of it being approved or not. So we filed for the Bitcoin ETF in very late 2020. And we thought it was a long shot, but then 1 month later, the Canadian ETFs got approved.
Brazil Crypto Report is presented by Kaleido. Kaleido is the most trusted digital assets and blockchain company by enterprises. Their product suite is the ultimate business blockchain cloud and is rated #1 for tokenization and #1 for blockchain as a service. Built by veterans of IBM Blockchain and Consensus, the Kaleido platform combines turnkey functionality with enterprise-grade security and scalability to power your application. Learn more and try it for free at kaleido.io.
And then everybody was, oops, I think there's a chance I think there's now a higher chance that the product gets approved, and happily in late March, I think it was a 20 or 20 March 2020 or 21st, we got the green light from CVM. It was the same day, by the way, of the hash 11. The CVM approved both in the same day, but they had already all the offering. They had already structured all the offering. They had they had a much a more ready go to market than we did. We just got the approval by ourselves. We had to structure all the go to market after the approval, and it took a couple of months. So we listed in June 2021, which was a good timing as well. There was at the time there was a good interest from market makers, from global market makers that are the same guys that are providing liquidity on CME and on spot markets as well. And the fund gained some liquidity. The Bitcoin ETF gained some liquidity kind of fast. Soon after the launch of the Bitcoin ETF, we already filed for the Ether one, and it was good, I think. And there was not much listed products at the time, so.
And one question I know a lot of people have, and I get asked this question a lot, is with these ETFs, these crypto ETFs in Brazil that you guys are offering, that Hashdex and others are offering. Like, who are the main buyers of these, or who are the main investors into these funds? Is this mainly like a retail play, or is this mainly like retail investors coming in through various brokerages to buy into these funds, or is this more of a kind of a institutional or like high net worth investor play for these assets?
I think it's still mostly a retail product, but I think it's starting to diversify a bit into institutional and high net worth individuals, especially after the spot bitcoins in the US that drew a lot of attention from those more sophisticated investors to the asset class. But crypto, since they are mostly retail products here in Brazil, they came together in a time where people where Brazilian investors were starting to pay more attention to ETFs as a product. So I think that crypto ETFs had an important role, if you want, in the development of the ETF market here in Brazil, because they launched in a very good timing, price wise, so that drew a lot of attention from investors. We made some good offerings. The two main products, our Bitcoin ETF and Hash 11, we made good offerings on the market that drew a lot of shareholders to a large shareholder base to those ETFs. And today, crypto ETFs are if you list all the ETFs in Brazil of all the asset classes, in number of shareholders, we have two crypto ETFs among the top 5. So it's a good accomplishment, I think, for the ETF industry as a whole. So I think that crypto, maybe it was a coincidence, maybe it was due to other factors, but crypto ETFs played an important role here in Brazil on the development of ETF as a vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that the reason that the crypto ETFs have been so popular relative to other asset classes in terms of ETFs, is this due more to like crypto just being like a really popular asset, or is it more due to maybe ETFs being a bit more of a nascent asset class in Brazil compared to other markets?
I think that was a a combination of several factors, but you started having you could buy Bitcoin on B3, so you have a lot of traders with their home brokers or more sophisticated tools that like the volatility of crypto, but that were not savvy enough or didn't have the interest to go open an account on an exchange and something like that. So all of a sudden they had a good instrument to trade. But I think it was after all, it was 2021, so markets were going up like crazy at that time. So I think the strong variations, the strong upside changes in price, they drew a lot of attention as well, and I think that played an important part as well.
Got it. And then before we dive into the Solana ETF, do you have any other numbers you could share specifically about? I mean, you mentioned earlier you have about like 1 billion Brazilian reals in AUM, which would be about 200 million US dollars, kind of 5-to-1 dividing. But do you have any other like kind of hard numbers on like total number of shareholders you have in these crypto ETFs, or even kind of the daily like volume, like trading volume of these products?
Sure. So today, and as I said it on a past interview that as a long term investor and as a company, Bitcoin maximalism kinds of pays out, because we saw it. If you take our funds, for example, when we launched the Bitcoin ETF, it was kind of, I don't know, 15 to 20% of our AUM at the beginning, and organically it grew to more than half. So today, of this almost 1 billion in total AUM, 50 to 55% is the Bitcoin ETF alone. Yes, and all organic growth, and it trades around 2024, in the turn of 2023 to 2024, specifically when the ETFs in New York got approved, volumes grew significantly. So today, the Bitcoin ETF, it trades around 10 million BRL, so around $2 million per day, which is kind of small if you compare to the US markets, but it's around depending on the day, 25 to 30% of the total crypto ETF volume here in Brazil. So and we have around we have around 60,000 shareholders in all of our funds, 40,000 of them in the Bitcoin ETF, around 15,000 in the Ether ETF, and some 15,000 divided on all the other products. We only have the number of individuals. We don't know if there's some double counting on those numbers.
Somebody could be buying in through through one brokerage app and then through also another brokerage app, and they might be double counted potentially, or it might be an institute. Somebody might be investing in another.
No. I think no, because I think the investors are accounted by CPF here in Brazil.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay.
But if the same guy has a share of the Bitcoin ETF and of the Ether ETF, he'll count of.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So they might own multiple, shares of multiple different funds. Therefore, they'd be double counted. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. So let's dive into the Solana ETF. So this is really exciting, and this was totally like I had no idea this was even being pursued or even I'd sort of just mentally written off like, yeah, we'll probably have Solana ETF in like 5 years, but not gonna happen anytime soon. And then out of nowhere, you guys get this announcement that, hey, you've been approved. Tell us about like what was the genesis of that? Like how long has this been in the works? And maybe tell us, just how it came to be approved last. I guess it would have been a couple weeks ago, early August when you had formal approval from the CVM.
So here at QR, we always had the Solana ETF will be our fourth ETF, listed ETF, 3 of which are single asset ETFs, and only one of them is a basket of several assets. We really think that we like the single asset thesis for ETFs. And that's why we rushed to be the first to launch the Ether ETF after the Bitcoin one. And I don't know if you remember when the Ether ETF got approved in the US, it was kind of a U-turn. It was not very expected. And when I saw the news, we said internally. So I think we with that U-turn in the US approving the Ether ETFs, we have to maybe be ready to launch a new one here in Brazil. That there's been 2 years that no product in the crypto space had been launched. There were 2023 and 24 so far have been good years for the crypto landscape. So we thought, what is the asset that most likely stands out and could be the object of a new ETF? And I think Solana was kind of an obvious choice, because even if you take the portfolios of local funds and even offshore funds that have a more diversified strategy, Solana is the biggest name in almost all of them after Bitcoin and ETH. So we thought that was if we go on the single asset thesis, it was the name to get a product launched. Even us here in one of our funds, we made our first fund, which is called QR Blockchain Assets. It's an actively managed fund. It was a fund that was only for accredited investors or qualified investors, as we say here in Brazil. And in the beginning of the year, we made a change to be able to offer this fund to the general public and retail investors. But for this, the only way how you can do this according to the Brazilian regulations is that you have to invest 8 to 90% through crypto ETFs and only 10 to 20% in tokens abroad. Since now we had almost 100, almost all the AUM that we had in directly in tokens offshore became ETFs. We started noticing a certain. It was hard to get Solana exposure. We wanted to grow our Solana exposure, but we couldn't do it through the ETF that we had here. You have some baskets of smart contracts and everything that have a strong Solana exposure, but you get a lot of things that maybe you don't want to buy with it together. So we had also the need to have a pure Solana vehicle here in Brazil. So it was kind of a sum of all those needs. We were in the pain of needing a vehicle for a stronger Solana exposure, and we thought as well that if it interests us, it should be of interest of other players in the market as well. And it has a strong narrative especially after the Solana breakpoint last year. With all the upgrades that they are pursuing, and the network itself grew a lot. Lots of meme coins, meme coins that are responsible for that growth. But you have a growth in TVL, in number of users on chain of network. If you take for example, the electric capital reports that come in the beginning of each year with the developers' activity, that it's been a while. I think 2 years in a row where it was the network that attracted the most of the developers, a strong developer community. So I think it had all and it's the biggest today. I think it's the biggest non-stable coin asset after Bitcoin and ETH. So putting all this together, we thought it was.
It definitely makes sense why this would be the next Solana would be like the next asset in line for an ETF. Like after the Bitcoin ETF's been approved, after ETH's been approved, like okay, like going down the line. I mean, you're not going to get a stable coin ETF. Like no one's going to buy a USDC ETF, right? So like, but like a Sol ETF, okay, that makes a bit more sense, right? I think people had kind of just written this off in the US. Like, okay, maybe someday we'll get this, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. But Brazil, obviously, the CVM and the regulators are a bit more open and forward thinking on these things than the US. So you guys, you submitted your application for this. I'm assuming, after the ETH approval in the US, like, hey, let's get ahead of this. And the CVM, obviously, they approved it, so they're supportive of the idea. How do you think that this, I guess, like, changes like the market dynamics in Brazil and maybe globally like this? I mean, it's always kind of historic. Everyone wants to be like the first one to do something, right? Like a nice little news hook over the first Solana ETF, spot ETF worldwide. But I mean, how do you think this maybe changes the narrative or helps advance the narrative in some way that this asset class is like not going away, right? That we have like in the US, people may have written off Solana ETFs for a while, but like, hey, we've already got these things in Brazil, and like what happens in Brazil usually seems to precede what happens in the US by a couple of years. Therefore, like we should be excited about this, right? But how do you see this maybe like impacting the narrative, just both in Brazil and globally on crypto assets?
We were impressed by how the story grew in the press here, and especially in the crypto news vehicle, in the crypto news like CoinDesk or Cointelegraph and all those big names in the crypto publishing, if you want, in the media, in the crypto specialized media. Globally. So we had a lot of the story kind of went viral of the first Solana ETF in the world, and it was purely organic. We didn't push it. It kind of impressed us how people are after the Bitcoin and ETH in ETFs in the US, how people are eager to have a new product and a new but yes, I think here in Brazil it's a good place to if you want to launch a new product in the crypto space, and you want to do it fast. You here apparently you have the regulator by your side. He understands the thesis. He understands the market. I think when in all the talks in all the interactions we had with the regulators since 2019, before we launched our first funds, I could say from the people we talked to, especially in CVM, that people are well aware of what they're doing. They really did their own research. They know what they're doing. And recently here in Brazil, we also had Ambima as well, trying to legitimize this crypto as an asset class. Today, I don't know how familiar you are with with the regulated market and for funds and everything. But today, Ambima, which is another, I think it's a self-regulatory. You would define here a self-regulatory. It's an association of market institutions, but that works closely with CVM, and it's kind of a regulatory board, if you want, for local institutions. And Ambima, they have a really strong piece that is the best practices for asset managers. It's a document called the AGR, is the Guia de Recursos, Guia de Gestão de Recursos, like a guide of best practices for people who wants to manage other people's money. And they introduced it a chapter, a specific chapter dedicated to crypto on that big document. That is mostly a TradFi document, if you want, and teaching if a traditional finance fund or institution wants to go into crypto, wants to invest in crypto, well, what should they do? What are the best practices of KYC and what they call KYT and KYP, which is know your transaction, know your token, and know your partner. What they should look at when they are looking for a crypto custodian. What do they have to look for when deciding to invest or not in a given token? So I think there's a strong effort here in Brazil to make the crypto markets become more professional. And if, as it was in the past, it is a sign of what could happen in the US or in more developed markets, I think it's a good sign, because the people here are really trying to make it look serious.
So I have a bit of a kind of a dumb question for you, coming from somebody who does not have a deep financial background. But so you have the ETFs, right? And then you also have Solana ETF, which will be live in Brazil by the time this podcast airs. And then in Europe, you have ETPs. You have a variety of like Solana ETPs, exchange traded products, right? That are trading on, I think, in Switzerland and maybe some other venues. And I've never quite understood the difference between these, I guess. Like, would you be able to explain quickly, like, what's the difference between ETP and ETF, maybe in terms of how they're structured and how they operate? And then what would, for the end investor, like, what would be the difference? I mean, is this really more of like a retail investor versus qualified investor type of difference? Or is there a broader, is there something else here that's...
I'm not an expert in the European regulations, and I don't know. I have to look better in that. As you, I have the same flaw. If you want to, I don't know why the ETPs are not considered formal ETFs. They are not funds. They are some kind of investment vehicle. They are not funds. So that's why they are not called ETFs, but they work pretty much the same way as an ETF does. They just don't have the name. And by the way, in Europe, in those ETPs, apart from Bitcoin, the biggest ETP in Europe that is not a Bitcoin one, it's a Solana one.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Bigger than ETH, huh? Wow. Okay, that's a good leading indicator then. And so, what would how has been like the reception since you've announced this? And I'm assuming you're taking orders from different brokerages and things. Like, what's been the demand? What's been the reception from the market here locally in Brazil? Like from the investor community on this news? Are people like racing to put money in this fund, or like what's the level of excitement around this?
So I still don't have that info yet. I'll have it in a couple of days. we saw strong interest from the media, especially, and from some institutional investors, and from brokerages wanting to participate in the offering, but we still don't have a full picture of what's the real interest for retail. As I said, it's the first offering of a crypto product since 2022, and there's you have more competition because you have more not only crypto ETFs, but you have other ways to get exposure here in Brazil to the tech to technology as a whole, and you have much higher interest rates than you had in the past. So it's not, even if the media interest is very strong, and we get a lot of publicity for being the first Solana ETF in the world. We still have to see how the effective interest of the retail investor is doing.
Yeah, those are some good points, right? Like there are a lot more ways to access these types of assets than maybe there were 2 years ago in Brazil, like going through like local legal regulated exchanges or banks or fintechs or whatever. You may not necessarily need to go through an ETF product to get exposure. And you also might just have kind of a retail fatigue, right? Which I feel like you're seeing that across the crypto markets generally, is that I think, people maybe, didn't do so well in in 2022, 2023, and they're kind of just sitting out this current cycle. And maybe like for some of these folks that are maybe they've heard of Bitcoin or they've heard of Ethereum, but Solana is still kind of this new thing that doesn't, it really only came into being but in 2021, really, during this last cycle. So it doesn't quite have the like the legitimacy, or it just hasn't been around long enough for people to maybe like really fully grasp what it is. So it'll be interesting to see what the demand is for this. But my suspicion is that there'll be a healthy set of demand for this, just given some of the factors we've been discussing, right? Solana does have, I think most people would agree that it has a very vibrant ecosystem in terms of developers and builders, meme coins, right? I mean, who hasn't lost money trading meme coins, right? Like that's kind of the crypto experience of 2024, right? Is losing money on meme coins, right? But anyway, all the fundamentals seem to be pretty strong, and and they're shipping fast, they're shipping upgrades quickly. The tech stack seems to be working well. It seems to be tracking lots of momentum and interest. So
no, we are very confident here on the thesis, on the Solana thesis for being the object of a new product. We have to see what the real interest from retail and investors in general will be. But I think that if you look a little bit longer term, after this week or after next week, I think that's an ETF that has a chance to grow fast, to have a lot of positive inflows continually over time, and not only on the first day or the second day. Here we're really optimistic about organically high growth fund, if you want, or product. I think it will have a strong inflows in the first, I don't know, months weeks to months. We're very optimistic about that we may end. We have what, 3 to 4 months to the end of the year. I think we might see a totally different size of product in December than next week.
do you have a number in mind by the end of the year that you'd like to see the fund get to? Like if we can get to, X amount of AUM, that would be successful, or do you have any target in mind?
I don't have that's curious that you asked it, because I have a target in mind. It's not a number, but I think I think that we will have we have a strong chance of having at least by the end of the year the double that we raised in the initial offering.
Oh wow, okay. So you think you can double what you what you're raising in this initial offering right now? You think you can double that total basically by the end of the year?
I think I know it's a bit too optimistic, but I really think we could do that.
Well, hey, best of luck. Really excited to see what you guys are doing here and kind of moving. It's always fun to see people find, when people are just like really pushing the ball down the field, so to speak, on these types of subjects. And it's really exciting to see that you guys have been, leading on this, and also, going back 5 years now, you guys have really been leaders on these types of products and getting these things to market, proving the viability of these things, and eventually the U.S. and the other markets will follow along. So, but it's very cool, talking to you as one of the trailblazers of this space. So, so congratulations on all that, and best of luck on this new product. And Theo, where can folks find you if they want to get in touch or learn more?
I'm available on Twitter and LinkedIn at Theodoro Fleury as my first and last name. I'm on Telegram under that handle as well, and there we have WhatsApp groups and Telegram groups. A lot of content that we publish here from our research team. We have a weekly report that comes out with news and the deeper dive in one specific thesis. We have the QR asset page on LinkedIn as well, in which we are trying to be more and more active and publishing more content as well. And you have a website; people can talk to it through our website as well. All the contact page, we almost everyone in the firm receives the email each time people try to send messages to us through the QR asset website. So we are pretty much available to anyone who wants to get in touch with us.
Amazing. All right. Well, Theo, thank you so much for your time, and thanks to everyone for watching, and we will see you next time.